Northanger Abbey by Austen, Butler, and Lee is a comic book of Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I was super excited to read this comic book, mostly based on the cover. The art was absolutely gorgeous. It was dark. It was mysterious. When I found out it came out in a series of 5, I looked at the other covers and I was like, yes, this art looks gorgeous. And I rightfully so, was excited to read it. And then I actually started reading it. And I was a little bit disappointed because the art was just so different. This is what the cover should have looked like. You did have all of the main characters in this particular Jane Austen knockoff. That being said, they were hard to follow because there was no color continuity through the different families, helping indicate who went with whom. Mr. Tilney and Mr. Moreland kind of looked an awful lot alike. That being said, Mr. Thorpe, I loved how they made him such an over-the-top character, very Johnny Rocket, because he should stand out. Otherwise, I wasn't really impressed with the way the cohesion just didn't come together. That being said, the color theory and the color continuity through the different locations was amazing. Bath was bright, it was yellow, it was orange. Once we get to Northanger, it gets dark and gloomy, and there's lots of blues. And then you get to Worcester, and you get a mix of all of the different colors, and I think this was done very well. Just a little wordplay history for you. One of the words we see in this book is auspicious, and you find it in the original version as well. You actually see this word in all of Jane Austen's work, and I was looking for a word to really sum up this book, and auspicious seemed really apt. And then I kind of dug into the history of the word, and when you look at the ebb and flow of who uses that word back then versus now, when it was written, it wasn't a very popular word. It will then rise in use, and now it's tapered off, and I think it's a word we should definitely bring back. Another thing that I think the authors did very well in this piece is movement and time. When you look at the different ways that they used to convey the story, movement, the dancing scenes in particularly, and time when it comes to tours and riding in a carriage, I think they used the art very effectively here to portray that. You know, this book is very short compared to the original. I think it was only like 112 pages. And given that so much of that was taken up with the art, this particular format of the art was just very well done. And I definitely loved seeing that. So some final thoughts for all of you. I'm not sure that this particular knockoff would make any sense if you hadn't originally read the original and or seen one of the Northanger Abbey movies. And I really wonder about that since I've read not only many versions of this book, but watched them as well. Overall, this was not my favorite retelling, but it was an easy intro to Austen, and it's a very light reading if you want that. But as always, read it, don't read it, but please read something.